Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about kind of all the other games that happened this past weekend. We talked about Wake Forest getting one absolutely stolen from them, Notre Dame doing just mean things to Arkansas and leading a cleaning of the house out there. Other than Bobby Petrino, he might just be hanging out by himself around there right about now. But at the end of the day, let's move into the winners and losers from this past weekend. There were quite a bit of winners, not as many losers this past weekend. Now, maybe there were, and I just don't want to highlight them too aggressively, but definitely some big time winners that I want to talk about. And let's start with the one that is the most obvious and probably the most painful to talk about for certain fan bases out there. Curses had a big weekend. In college football, there is something to be said about a curse, about a mental hurdle. And Georgia and Penn State have them. Georgia can't get over the Alabama curse. Penn State can't get over the big game curse, and it can't really be described. For Penn State, it might be a little bit easier to explain just because they're not quite good enough, they're not quite talented enough, they're not quite physical enough to compete with those teams at the very top level. For Georgia, I don't know. I don't know what it is about Bama. I don't know what it is about this football team. They've changed coaches. There's been player about play. There's probably been 4 or 5 different iterations of players since they've been able to continuously beat Georgia. I don't know what happens there. That being said, I'm much less worried about Georgia moving forward in terms of a national title and CFP type berth because I know they can beat great teams. I just know they can't beat Alabama for whatever reason. For Penn State, I don't know that they can beat any true national title contender, and that is a huge worry, plain and simple. It's a very weird sport. These things happen all the time. I don't know how you can really explain them. They can't really be explained, if I'm being totally honest. But at the end of the day, it is something that both these guys are going to have to get over. Kirby Smart, at some point, going to have to beat Alabama. He did, to be totally fair, did get him in the national title. You're going to have to beat him at some point consistently. For Penn State, I don't know. It's a very interesting situation over there where it wouldn't be crazy to me if this was the start of the end for James Franklin up there. It also wouldn't be crazy to me if this was start of kind of a new era where this kind of flipped a switch. It's really confusing. I don't know what to make of it. At the end of the day, the curses got them once again, and they were very, very sick of those curses. Another winner is young quarterback talents. These guys were incredible this weekend, and they've been incredible really throughout the entirety of the year, and it was always the conversation that's been had early on this season has been what happened to the quarterback play. The quarterback play in college football is so terrible. No one's playing good football. Arch Manning's playing terrible. DJ Lagway can't throw the football. Cade Klubnik is playing all over the place. Garrett Nussmeier doesn't look like himself. That one's injury. But at the end of the day, the quarterbacks that we all thought were going to be incredible, including myself, have not played good football. That doesn't mean there hasn't been really good football played. Dante Moore played about as good of a game from a quarterback as you're going to see this past Saturday. Julian Sain, right there with him, making every right decision and putting the ball exactly where it needs to go. Ty Simpson's not a young player, to be totally fair, but it is his first year starting, is playing some elite football. Trinidad Chambliss, obviously a veteran talent, but also a guy that's stepping up to the FBS level, and not only that, the SEC level this year, and playing some incredible football. Yes, the quarterbacks that we hyped up going into the season aren't delivering, and there's definitely some things to figure out. You look forward at the quarterback talent in the world of college football, I feel really good about it. I think Dante Moore is going to be an NFL star for about 10 years. I think Julian Sain is going to be an NFL starter for about 10 years. I still think Arch Manning's a good quarterback, as crazy as that sounds. I do think he's going to be fine, and he's going to find his footing slowly throughout his career. Might not be fully this year, but at some point, I do believe he's going to find his footing. Then you got guys like JKS, Jaron Kiave Sagapulotele, incredible football player. Dylan Lonergan, playing really good football up there at Boston College. We have good quarterbacks, is really what I'm trying to say in college football. They just might not be the names that we're all accustomed to, and that's fine. It's just a little bit weirder of a year, and it was going to be that way. With so many different quarterbacks coming in, with so many different starters all around the country, maybe it was the new guys that were going to take over and not the old heads that had been there for a while and hadn't quite broken through. The winner was the trap game favorites, and leaving Florida State kind of to the side of this because they're the only one that really fell victim to this, but Georgia Tech stole one from Wake Forest, and we've talked about that plenty. I won't rip into that anymore. Tennessee survived on the road at Mississippi State. Indiana snuck one out against Iowa. Notre Dame just brutally abused Arkansas. But at the end of the day, a lot of games that you're looking at and you're thinking, there's got to be a couple upsets here. There's got to be a couple of moments where these teams fall and they're not able to get big-time wins, and their seasons are kind of in weird positions going forward. And we almost got that with Georgia Tech, and we definitely did get it with Florida State. I thought there was going to be more of them, if I'm being honest. I picked Arkansas to win that football game, as crazy as that sounds. I picked Arkansas to win that game against Notre Dame. I thought Iowa was maybe going to be able to beat Indiana late in that football game. Same thing for Mississippi State and Tennessee. So all those teams snuck away. And it's something that we'll talk about here in a second. That's an absolute win. Finding a way to win these football games is not going to be easy this year. And if you find a way to win, especially on the road like a Tennessee team did, take it and run with it, and then you figure out the rest of it later. But going to be an incredible season, and you're going to have trap games like this every week. The favorites are not going to win every week like they did this week. Now, Florida State withstanding. But the winner/loser of this weekend is the SEC fans. This thing is confusing, man. Can anyone tell me the best 5 teams in the SEC? I know everyone's going to have a list. Does anyone have the same list? Is there any remote consensus of, is Ole Miss the best team? Is Alabama now back to being the best team? Maybe a Tennessee team that fell a little bit short against Georgia but is playing really good football right about now. A&M's playing good football and is undefeated. Oklahoma, the John Mateer injury changes some of the trajectory, but still a good team that's playing great football right now. What do you make of this conference? I went down it and I tried to figure out how many teams are really thinking they can win the conference right now. How many fan bases are sitting there saying we are going to, or at the very least, we can win this conference. I think there's 10 of them. I really do. I think there's 10 of them, and that's leaving out a Mississippi State fan base that has to feel great about where they are. I think they understand that they're probably not winning an SEC title, partly because that schedule is an absolute nightmare. But when you talk about Texas fans, they're always going to think they're going to win the conference. Plain and simple. That's coming from a Texas fan. I understand the way Longhorn fans think. Always are going to think they're going to win the conference. No doubt about that. Oklahoma, the exact same. A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, absolutely thinks they're going to get something done here. Vanderbilt absolutely is a team that's in this thing. And I'm missing another one, and I don't know why. But at the end of the day, there is a number of teams that are looking at this thing and saying, we can get it done. We can find a way to get to Atlanta, and then who knows from there. Ole Miss has probably looked the best thus far, but it's far from flawless. There's far from an elite team in this conference, and you can argue that makes that conference worse. You can argue it makes it better. I think it's a moot argument. I think it just makes it different, and I think it's really, really fun. There's no doubt about that. I think you're going to have maybe a champion that has 3 losses by the end of this thing. They go in 9-3. They find a way to beat a 10-2 team because this thing's going to get ugly. If your team finds a way to win in the SEC this year, take that win and run with it. I don't care if it's 1 point. I don't care if it's 50 points. Take that win, run with it. It's going to be all over the place, and it's going to be really hard to figure out who from that SEC belongs in the CFP. And I don't know if I trust the CFP committee to do it, but that's a conversation for another day. The winner were the Miami Hurricanes. They didn't play football this past weekend, and they got to watch Florida State lose. They got to watch Georgia Tech struggle and probably should have lose. They got to watch Louisville and Pitt engage in an all-out brawl, including the ball boy getting into a little bit of a scuffle, but a legend over there nonetheless. It's insane what Miami has been able to do this season and what everyone else has kind of helped them to do this season. And their schedule is set up in such a way where if they get a win against Florida State this weekend on the road, which tall order, there's no doubt about that. We'll talk about that game on Thursday. But at the end of the day, if they get that win, then they get 13 days to get ready for a Louisville team that really is the last big threat on their schedule. There's still some tough games, no doubt about it, but this is the game where if you win against Florida State, you win against Louisville. I think that's probably an undefeated team by the end of the year, at least going into the ACC title. And then we'll see what happens from there. It's very possible that Ohio State or Oregon goes undefeated and they're the number 1 team going into the CFP. It's also very likely they slip up at least once throughout the season, and Miami is sitting at the very top with a chance to go win a national title. Now, big questions about Miami, and I think a lot of them will be answered affirmatively or negatively this upcoming weekend, but at the end of the day, they're a big-time winner this past weekend just by sitting on their couch. The loser is officiating in college football. I talked about it a lot. Wake Forest lost a game because of the officials, plain and simple. And now they shouldn't have let Georgia Tech back in that football game. I think that's fair to be said as well. It doesn't change. It's just ridiculous. I don't know how you miss it. I really don't. I don't know how. First of all, I don't know how you miss it, plain and simple. I also don't know how you miss it, and I still haven't heard anything from that specific official. I still haven't heard anything from the ACC as a whole. I still haven't heard that they were wrong about this. It is ridiculous the way that we go about this system. It's not to say that refereeing isn't hard. It's incredibly hard, and we give them maybe a little bit less respect than we probably should at a number of times. The reality of the matter is, you are taking wins away from people and you are altering the sport week by week with calls that are just downright ridiculous. It's not to say that they're totally decided by one call. It's not to say that they're totally deciding these football games one way or another. But I can now remember, I think, 3 different times for the past couple of seasons, past 2 seasons, where we've had games where outright, if one call is called the correct way, the other team wins. Plain and simple. The Wake Forest game is obviously the most recent example. LSU last year against South Carolina. The one call, if that's made the right way, South Carolina wins that football game. Plain and simple. That's just the reality of that situation. So it's ridiculous. We have to find a better way to do this, and it's not necessarily to say these people need to get fired and can't do a game ever again. It's just to say I want accountability. I want to know why that guy didn't make that call. I want to know how he didn't make that call, and frankly, I kind of want him to get fined for not making that call, because I know for a fact Jake Dicker would have gotten fined if he said that was a ridiculously bad call. So we just have to be better. This is a multi-billion-dollar sport that has a penny and dime officiating crew, and I really don't understand why. It doesn't make sense to me. Well, it makes sense to me because the people making decisions don't care about how good the sport is. They care about their paycheck. I understand that. It's uniquely frustrating to watch a sport that is so incredible, that is so special, and that is meant to be insane. It's not meant to be insane because of the striped guys. It's meant to be insane because of the players on the football field, and there's been multiple times where that's been taken out of their hands. It's ridiculous, and it needs to be fixed. And then you have the Amari Campbell play. I don't know how that's not targeting. I don't understand targeting. How is that targeting, not targeting? But James Smith gets kicked out of the second half of the UGA game and the first half of the Vanderbilt game for a very relatively normal play inside the box where he, yes, does lower his head a little bit. But what are we talking about? We're doing just a disservice to this game, to these players, to these coaches, when we put out people, when we put out a system that just doesn't encourage these refs to do their job correctly all the time at every second, and do their job consistently all the time at every second. And it should at all times. It should never be a question that referees should be right. They should be better. I'll leave it at that for the time being. I don't want to go on a crazy diatribe here, but it's just ridiculous. A sport like college football should be so much better about this, and it's going to be a problem going forward regardless. I totally understand that. It's never going to be totally fixed, but you're altering games because of how bad these officials are and because of how confusing the officiating system is. Overhaul the entire thing. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how quickly you can do it, but you got to do it. Back to the bright side of things, the winners is us. This was awesome. This past weekend was absolutely incredible. We got maybe the best field storming of all time. Squirrel White is okay, by the way. The Florida State receiver, he did find his way out. Looked like a Virginia player went and got him, so shout out to that guy. But at the end of the day, he is fine. That field storming was incredible. We had multiple incredible games, one incredible game in every single slot, like I feel like we've had all year. And shout out to Brooks Austin over on the Film Guy Network for this one. There were 14 games between a ranked opponent and another Power 4 opponent. So that includes the 4 ranked games we had, and then all the other games that were just conference opponents, or, I'm trying to think of one. Iowa State played Arizona. That's an example of this. Of those 14 games that were played between a top 25 team and another Power 4 opponent, 11 were decided by one score. 11 of those games. And the average margin, now Notre Dame kind of skews that just a little bit, but the average margin was around 7 points in those games. It was incredible to watch what unfolded this weekend, and I'm going to say this for every college football fan out there right now. Enjoy this. This is going to be a weird season. It's going to go all over the place. Your team is not going to win every week. Your team is not going to be perfect. There are going to be wins that you don't feel like you deserve. There's going to be losses that you don't feel like you deserve. If you get the win, run away with it. Because the reality of the matter is, it's going to be really hard to get wins this season. It's going to be really hard to find a way to get one win every single week and continue to move forward. If your team isn't necessarily in it, enjoy watching your rivals fall, because a couple of them will. I can absolutely promise you that. There's going to be moments where it ebbs and flows, where it looks like Texas is playing the best football in the country, and then they fall off a cliff. Ohio State looks like they're on top of the world, and then they fall off a cliff. Oregon looks like they're dominating, and then they fall. It's going to happen. I promise you. I don't know who it's going to be. I tend to believe it's not going to be Ohio State and Oregon, but at the end of the day, I don't know who it's going to be. it's going to be weird. I can't make outright promises about what's going to happen this season, and that's the good thing, because college football always delivers no matter what it's going to be, no matter who, if your team benefits or doesn't benefit, it's going to be a weird ride. So if you get wins on Saturdays, enjoy those wins. I don't care if it's by 1 point against Middle Tennessee State or by 50 points against Alabama. Enjoy those wins because they're not going to be super easy to come by this season. And whoever can get to 10, 9 maybe, finds their way into the CFP, and that should be enough this season. It's going to get weird. Just buckle down, enjoy it, and we'll see who comes out on the other side. This one was awesome. This was an incredible weekend of football, and we got one coming up that's going to be downright incredible. I did want to give some final thoughts before I got out of here, mainly about the show going forward. We're going to do shows on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Feel like I'm a little bit behind by the time I get my picks out on Wednesday. Want to make sure I can get those out as quickly as possible. So we're going to do Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday moving forward. We'll be back on Thursday to make all of our picks for this upcoming weekend. Usually the Tuesday show will be our pick show. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Also, a lot more content coming on my X account, on the Instagram accounts, on all of the different stuff, on YouTube as well. A lot of different stuff coming. I'm going to be dropping daily blogs after pretty much anything that happens in college football, but going to be dropping my weekly top 25s, my Heisman rankings, all of that good stuff. And if you want to follow on any of the socials, there they are right there. On X right now, it's Brzee_Thomas and JACFB podcast. That's also that on Instagram. So please do follow on both those places. Definitely does help out a lot. And just a lot more content coming out throughout the rest of the season. Couple ideas that just feel like I don't have enough time to really get to on this platform. Want to make sure I get to it. So the blog's going to be much more active. The social pages are going to be much more active on Saturdays. You're just going to see a lot more of me going forward, hopefully, and hopefully that's a good thing for a lot of you out there. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to just another edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment, do all that great stuff. Follow across all of my pages. Means the world to me. Really want to continue to do this, and probably I'm going to continue to do this. Absolutely love doing it every single week. Love talking college football, and absolutely would love for you guys to support me. So thank you once again for listening, and I will see you guys on Thursday to make some big-time Week 6 picks.